The tragedy at Artemis Colony. The Artemis Colony, located on the lush and resource-rich planet of Ventura, was humanity's pride in the far reaches of space. It was a peaceful settlement, home to families, researchers, and farmers who worked tirelessly to turn the once hostile world into a haven of life. Crystal-clear rivers flowed through dense forests, and golden fields of crops stretched for miles. The people of Artemis were a mix of dreamers and doers, all driven by the hope of building something greater than themselves. Children laughed as they played near the colony's central plaza, their carefree joy echoing through the open streets. Scientists in the research labs were excitedly working on new technologies, their findings promising breakthroughs that could benefit all of humanity. For years, Artemis had flourished without fear, hidden in the quiet outskirts of galactic space. But this peaceful life came to an abrupt and horrifying end on a day no one in the colony would forget. The first sign of trouble appeared on the colony's advanced radar systems. A young technician named Lisa spotted it, a strange, unregistered fleet moving rapidly toward Artemis. At first, she thought it was a glitch, but when the fleet grew closer and a radar lit up with over 100 red dots, her stomach dropped. "Commander Hale," Lisa said, her voice trembling as she called the colony's defense officer. "We've got something big heading our way. Unidentified ships, a lot of them." Commander Hale, a retired Earth Navy officer, rushed to the control center. He stared at the radar screen in disbelief. "This can't be right," he muttered. "Why would a fleet this size come all the way out here?" Within minutes, the ships broke through the atmosphere. The sky above Artemis darkened as massive Galactic Force warships hovered menacingly over the colony. These ships, with their sleek, metallic hulls and glowing blue engines, were unmistakable. The Galactic Forces, an alliance of alien species that dominated the galaxy, had arrived. Hale activated the colony's emergency alarm, a deafening siren that sent people scrambling for cover. Parents grabbed their children and ran toward underground shelters. Scientists sealed their labs, hoping to protect years of hard work. The once bustling colony now looked like a ghost town, as fear gripped every heart. Hale tried to hail the incoming fleet. "This is Commander Hale of the Artemis Colony. We are a peaceful settlement with no weapons. Please state your intentions." There was no response. Instead, the warships began their assault. Plasma beams rained down from the skies, targeting key structures, power plants, communication towers, and the central plaza. Explosions ripped through the colony, and flames consumed the once thriving settlement. The screams of terrified civilians filled the air as buildings collapsed and debris scattered like confetti. Lisa, still in the control center, fought to send a distress signal to Earth. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as sweat dripped down her forehead. Come on," she whispered, desperately trying to bypass the interference caused by the enemy's jamming signals. "Did you get through?" Hale asked, his voice tight with urgency. I think so," Lisa replied. "But I don't know if anyone will hear it in time." Hale's jaw clenched. He knew the truth. Even if Earth received the signal, they were too far away to help. Artemis was on its own. The Galactic Forces didn't stop with the buildings. They began targeting the people. Soldiers in advanced exosuits descended from the ships, firing energy weapons at anyone who tried to resist. Hale grabbed a rifle and joined the colony's small security team, trying to hold off the invaders. But it was like fighting a storm with a candle. One by one, the defenders fell. Civilians who couldn't make it to the shelters were rounded up by the soldiers, their faces filled with terror. The Galactic Forces showed no mercy. In the chaos, a young boy named Ethan clung to his mother, tears streaming down his face. "Mom, what's happening? Why are they doing this?" She hugged him tightly, her voice shaking. "I don't know, sweetheart. But we'll get through this. We have to." But deep down, she wasn't sure they would. As the hours dragged on, the colony was reduced to rubble. Smoke and ash filled the air, blocking out the sun. Hale, wounded and bleeding, watched helplessly as the last of his men fell. He knew it was over. Artemis was gone. But then something unexpected happened. Amid the destruction, a faint signal crackled through the control center speakers. Lisa, barely conscious, heard it. It was weak but unmistakable. A response from Earth. "This is Admiral Cal of the United Human Defense Fleet. We've received your distress call. Hold on. Reinforcements are on the way." Lisa's lips trembled into a weak smile. They heard us," she whispered before collapsing. Hale, leaning against a wall for support, muttered to himself, "You're too late, but make them pay." As the Galactic forces finished their assault and began to retreat, confident in their victory, they left behind a burning reminder of their power. But they didn't realize the fire they had ignited in the hearts of humanity. Earth's shocking response. The command center of Earth's United Human Defense Council, UHDC, was unusually quiet. A large holographic map of the galaxy glowed in the center of the room, showing human colonies scattered across the stars. Tensions were high as grim-faced officials reviewed the reports coming in. They had grown accustomed to skirmishes, minor disputes, and political games with alien factions. But the Artemis transmission, part static, part desperate screams, was unlike anything they had faced before. Admiral Cale stood at the head of the council table, his hands gripping the edge with white-knuckled intensity. His reputation as a calm and calculated leader had earned him the respect of Earth's military, but now a fire burned in his eyes. The words from the Artemis distress signal echoed in his mind. Under attack. Hundreds of ships. No survivors. A young officer stepped forward, her voice trembling slightly. "Admiral, Artemis colony. It's gone. We've confirmed total destruction. The Galactic forces annihilated everything." The room fell into silence, broken only by the faint hum of the holographic display. The council members exchanged uneasy glances, their faces pale. One member, an elderly diplomat named Counselor Han, finally spoke up. "They've crossed a line. But can we truly retaliate? If we provoke them further, they might strike Earth itself." Cal's sharp gaze cut through Han's words. "Provoke them?" he growled. "They just wiped out 50,000 of our people like they were nothing. This isn't a matter of provocation. It's survival." His voice carried an intensity that silenced the room. Cale turned to a technician monitoring the incoming data. "What's the status of our fleet?" The technician hesitated for a moment, then tapped a few controls. "Admiral, the fleet is operational. All 600,000 warships are fully armed and ready for deployment." But what?" Cale demanded. "It's never been done before," the technician admitted. "Launching the entire fleet is a gamble. If we lose, there will be nothing left to defend Earth." Cale straightened, his expression hard as steel. "If we sit here and do nothing, they'll come for Earth next. Humanity has spent centuries preparing for this moment. We've hidden our true strength for too long, thinking it would keep us safe. Well, it didn't. It's time we show the galaxy what humanity is capable of." The room erupted in murmurs. Counselor Han raised his hand, his voice shaky but firm. "Admiral, are you proposing we go to war with the Galactic forces? Their reach spans thousands of systems. We're one planet against an empire." Cale smirked, a dangerous edge to his demeanor. "One planet. No, Counselor. We're Earth. And today, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every colony they've destroyed, every innocent life they've trampled. We're not going to war. We're bringing justice." As the room debated the enormity of the decision, a new hologram flickered to life in the center of the room. It displayed Earth's hidden fleets, scattered across secret bases in the solar system. Massive carriers capable of deploying hundreds of fighter ships, frigates bristling with railguns and missile systems, and battlecruisers equipped with planet-crushing weaponry, all constructed in secret for this exact scenario. "Let me remind you," Cale said, his voice rising above the noise. "This fleet wasn't built to sit in hiding. It was built for this. The galactic forces think we're weak. They'll regret that mistake." The council finally fell silent. All eyes turned to the holographic map, where a fleet of unimaginable power stood ready. It was a moment of decision. After a tense pause, the head counselor nodded slowly. "Admiral Kale, the council grants you full command. Humanity places its future in your hands." Kale didn't waste time. Turning to his officers, he barked orders. "Prepare the fleet for immediate launch. I want every ship fueled, armed, and in hyperspace within the hour. And send a message to the galactic forces. Let them know they've made the worst mistake of their existence." The officers saluted and rushed to their stations. Across Earth's hidden military installations, alarms blared, and ships powered up. Massive docking bays opened as colossal carriers lifted off, their engines roaring like thunder. Thousands of smaller ships joined the formation, their sleek designs built for speed and precision. In the midst of the frenzy, Kale stood on the bridge of the flagship, resolute. It was a marvel of human engineering, a ship the size of a small moon, armed with experimental weapons that could punch through even the most advanced alien defenses. Kale stared out at the fleet assembling before him, his resolve unshakable. But deep down, he knew this wouldn't be an easy fight. The galactic forces had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They were powerful, ruthless, and deeply entrenched. This war wouldn't just test humanity's strength, it would test their will. As the fleet prepared to jump into hyperspace, Cal's voice echoed across every ship, every soldier, and every civilian watching from Earth. "To the people of Artemis, to every colony we've lost, and to the enemies who think they can break us, humanity stands united. Today, we strike back." With a blinding flash, the fleet vanished into hyperspace, leaving Earth's orbit empty. But the galaxy wouldn't stay quiet for long. Humanity was coming, and nothing would ever be the same again. Galactic forces celebrate too early. The Galactic High Council Chamber was a towering hall of cold metal and shimmering lights, located on the capital world of Laphos Prime. This was the heart of the galaxy's most feared empire. Around a circular table sat representatives of the galaxy's most powerful species, each dressed in ornate robes that signified their rank and authority. Their faces were a mixture of smug satisfaction and indifference. At the head of the table sat Supreme Chancellor Velarak, a towering being with crystalline skin that refracted light like a living prism. He raised a hand, signaling the room to quiet down. "The Artemis colony," he announced with a voice that echoed across the chamber, "has been reduced to ash. Humanity has been shown its place." Applause erupted from the council members. Some leaned back in their seats, their expressions smug, while others raised their glasses in silent toasts. The message was clear. The galactic forces were unstoppable. "Humans are an arrogant species," sneered Councillor Draven, a reptilian alien with sharp scales that gleamed under the chamber's lights. "They dared to spread into our space, thinking we wouldn't notice. Now, they know the cost of defiance." Velarak nodded, his crystalline form shimmering with approval. "Let this serve as a warning to any other species who think they can defy the galactic forces. Humanity's colonies are weak, and their homeworld is isolated. They will not retaliate. They cannot retaliate." Unbeknownst to them, the mood of celebration in the chamber was already under threat. Far away from the Council's capital, in a dimly lit room on one of the Galactic Force's forward command ships, a young intelligence officer named Karen was monitoring unusual activity near Earth. Her multi-eyed face scanned a glowing console filled with rapidly changing data. Something didn't feel right. "Commander, you need to see this," she called out, her voice tinged with urgency. A grizzled alien officer, his fur streaked with silver, walked over. "What is it, Karen?" "I've been tracking strange energy signatures near Earth's system," she explained, tapping on the screen. "Look at these patterns. They're consistent with mass ship movements, but the numbers don't make sense. No species has this many vessels. The commander frowned. Earth? That backwater planet. Their colonies fell like dry leaves. They don't have the resources for anything significant. That's what we thought, Karen replied, her tone cautious. But it's not normal. It's like their entire system is waking up. These readings suggest ship deployments in the hundreds of thousands. The commander scoffed. Impossible. They're likely trying to bluff, send out decoy signals to make us think they're stronger than they are. Ignore it. But Karen couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something big. Against her better judgment, she sent a private report to the High Council, warning them of potential retaliation. Back in the council chamber, Velrak received the report. He skimmed through it quickly and chuckled. Earth deploying a fleet of hundreds of thousands of ships. Absurd. Humanity is a child playing in a war they don't understand. The council shared a laugh at the report, dismissing it as paranoia. They were so blinded by their arrogance that they didn't notice the cracks forming in their empire. As the Galactic forces reveled in their supposed victory, news of the Artemis massacre spread to other species in the galaxy. Worlds under the Empire's rule began whispering among themselves. Some were terrified. If the Galactic forces could destroy Artemis, what chance did they have? But others felt something different, something new. Hope. In the outer reaches of the galaxy, whispers of humanity's resilience began to circulate. Stories of their technological ingenuity and unyielding determination spread like wildfire. On planets where galactic oppression was strongest, resistance groups began to rise, inspired by the mere idea that humans might strike back. And strike back they would. The Galactic forces' overconfidence blinded them to the storm building in the shadows. They didn't notice when Earth's fleet entered hyperspace, their engines blazing like the fury of 1,000 suns. They didn't hear the voices of human soldiers, speaking of vengeance for Artemis and justice for the oppressed. They didn't realize that humanity wasn't just coming for retribution. They were coming to change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. In the quiet before the storm, Karen sat alone in her quarters, staring at the strange data on her console. They're not bluffing, she whispered to herself, her heart pounding. They're coming. But by the time the High Council understood the gravity of the situation, it would be too late. Humanity wasn't just a threat. They were the reckoning the galaxy had never seen coming. The part ends with Earth's fleet exiting hyperspace near the first Galactic Forces outpost, their warships stretching as far as the eye could see. On the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Kale stood tall, his eyes fixed on the enemy station. They wanted a war, he said coldly. Let's give them one. The first clash. The Galactic Forces outpost on the edge of human territory was a fortress of steel and firepower, orbiting the barren moon of Crixer. It was the first line of defense for the Empire, its massive cannons capable of vaporizing incoming fleets before they even reached visual range. The outpost's commander, General Farvak, a hulking figure of muscle and horn scales, paced the command deck with confidence. He had heard the reports about human activity near Earth, but dismissed them as desperate attempts by a dying species to make noise. Let them come, Farvak growled to his officers. If the humans dare to retaliate, we will crush them like the insects they are. But deep in the darkness of space, the humans had already arrived. The Resolute, Earth's flagship, emerged from hyperspace first, its colossal form casting an ominous shadow across the stars. Behind it, thousands of ships followed in perfect formation. Sleek destroyers, heavily armed frigates, and gargantuan carriers moved as one, their hulls glinting under the distant light of Crixer's sun. It wasn't just a fleet, it was a storm. On the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Kale stood with his hands clasped behind his back, staring at the galactic outpost displayed on the main screen. The station bristled with defenses, turrets, missile bays, and shield generators hummed with energy. It was a fortress built to repel any attack. But Kale didn't flinch. "They're underestimating us," he said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. "Admiral," called Captain Rice, his second in command. "The outpost has locked weapons on us. They're powering up their shields." Cale nodded. "Good. That'll make this more satisfying. Order the fleet to hold formation. Let them make the first move." On the Galactic outpost, alarms blared as human ships appeared on their sensors. General Tharvak barked orders to his crew, his voice booming. "All weapons online. Focus fire on their lead ship. Show them why the Empire rules this galaxy." Massive energy cannons rotated toward the Resolute and unleashed a barrage of plasma bolts. The glowing projectiles streaked through space, lighting up the void. But just as they were about to hit their target, the Resolute's experimental energy shields flared to life, absorbing the impact with a brilliant flash. The ship didn't budge. "What?" Tharvak roared, slamming his fist on the console. "No ship can withstand a direct hit from our cannons." Back on the Resolute, Cale allowed himself a small smile. "Their tech is outdated," he muttered. Then, louder, "All ships, fire at will." The human fleet responded as one. Thousands of railguns, missile pods, and laser cannons lit up the darkness, unleashing a coordinated storm of destruction. The Galactic outpost's shields flared under the assault, but they weren't designed to withstand an attack of this magnitude. Sections of the station began to explode as human weapons tore through its defenses. Inside the outpost, chaos erupted. Consoles sparked, alarms screamed, and officers shouted over each other. General Tharvak stared at the destruction on the main screen, his confidence replaced by disbelief. How are they this strong?" One of his officers turned to him, panic in his eyes. "General, their ships, their technology. It's decades ahead of ours." "Impossible," Tharvak bellowed. But deep down, he felt the first twinge of fear. As the human fleet advanced, smaller ships broke off and began targeting the outpost's weapons systems. Agile fighters darted through enemy fire, dodging turrets and missiles with precision. They moved like predators, relentless and unyielding. On the bridge of the Resolute, Cale watched the battle unfold with icy calm. "Send in the boarding teams," he ordered. From the human carriers, dropships launched in perfect unison, their engines blazing as they raced toward the outpost. Inside, elite human soldiers prepared for combat. Each one was clad in advanced exosuits equipped with adaptive armor and enhanced weaponry. When the dropships breached the outpost's docking bays, the Galactic defenders were unprepared. Human soldiers poured out, their movements swift and calculated. They fought with an efficiency that left the defenders overwhelmed. In the command center, Tharvak watched the feeds of the invasion with growing dread. His forces were being overrun. The humans weren't just strong, they were unstoppable. Desperate, Tharvak activated the station's self-destruct sequence. If he couldn't win, he would at least take the humans with him. But just as his clawed hand hovered over the final confirmation, the door to the command center exploded inward. Human soldiers stormed the room, their weapons trained on Tharvak and his officers. At their head was Captain Rice, her helmet reflecting the glow of the burning station. "Stand down," she ordered, her voice cold. "This station belongs to humanity now." Tharvak snarled, his hand moving toward the console. But before he could activate the self-destruct, Rice fired a single shot, hitting the controls and disabling the sequence. Defeated, Tharvak slumped in his chair. "You don't know what you've done," he growled. "The Empire will come for you. You've sealed your fate." Ray stepped closer, her expression unreadable. "No," she said. "We've sealed yours." The part ends with the human fleet regrouping as the Galactic outpost burns behind them. On the bridge of the Resolute, Cale stands tall, his eyes fixed on the next target. "Send a message to the Galactic forces," he says. "Tell them the first clash was just the beginning. Humanity's unstoppable advance." The aftermath of the first clash sent shockwaves across the galaxy. For centuries, the Galactic forces had stood unchallenged, their dominance absolute. But now, whispers of Earth's devastating retaliation spread like wildfire. News of the destroyed outpost and humanity's unmatched fleet reached even the farthest corners of the galaxy. The balance of power was shifting, and the Empire's enemies were beginning to take notice. On the capital world of Lathos Prime, the Galactic High Council convened in a state of panic. The once smug counselors now looked uneasy, their confidence shaken. Supreme Chancellor Velrak slammed his crystalline fist on the table, his voice echoing through the chamber. This is an anomaly. A fluke, he growled. Humanity cannot sustain this assault. They're reckless, throwing everything they have into one attack. Their strength will fade. But even as he spoke, reports poured in from across the galaxy. Earth's fleet wasn't slowing down. It was accelerating. World after world, outpost after outpost, humanity's forces carved a path through the Galactic Empire. Unlike the Empire's cruel campaigns, the humans fought with precision and purpose. They dismantled the enemy's defenses with ruthless efficiency, but they spared civilians and even offered protection to the oppressed. Entire alien populations, long subjugated by the Empire, began rallying behind humanity's banner. On the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Kale stood surrounded by holograms of newly liberated planets. His officers reported the same thing over and over. Alien species were defecting to Earth's side, inspired by humanity's strength and mercy. "Sir," Captain Rice said, her voice laced with amazement, "we're seeing mass defections from within the galactic forces. Their soldiers are surrendering in droves. They're afraid. They've never seen anything like us." Kale nodded, but his face remained grim. "Fear won't win this war," he replied. "The Empire still has its core worlds, and they won't fall as easily. They'll throw everything they have at us before this is over." His words proved prophetic. As humanity's fleet advanced, the Empire began to regroup. Velrak, desperate to maintain control, called upon the Empire's most elite forces, the Dread Legions. These battle-hardened warriors, equipped with experimental weaponry and backed by colossal war machines, were unleashed to stop humanity's advance. The first clash between the Dread Legions and humanity's fleet took place near the twin suns of Zoreth. It was a battle unlike any other. The Empire's forces fielded massive dreadnoughts, each one capable of wiping out entire fleets. Their ground forces, led by towering mechs, unleashed destruction on the planets they defended. But humanity wasn't unprepared. Kale had anticipated this escalation. Hidden among his fleet were Earth's newest weapons, the Aegis-class battlecruisers, equipped with experimental plasma shields and railguns capable of firing at faster-than-light speeds. These ships turned the tide of battle, their overwhelming firepower smashing through the Dread Legion's defenses. On the ground, human soldiers proved why they were the most feared warriors in the galaxy. Their advanced exosuits allowed them to adapt to any environment, and their tactical coordination was unmatched. They didn't fight for conquest or domination. They fought for justice. In one of the most dramatic moments of the war, Captain Rice led a strike team to disable the Empire's planetary defense system on Zoreth's largest moon. The mission was perilous, with enemy fire raining down from all sides. But Rice and her team succeeded, paving the way for humanity's fleet to claim victory. As the Empire's losses mounted, Velrak grew increasingly desperate. He convened his council in secret, unveiling their ultimate weapon, the Starbreaker Station. The Starbreaker was a colossal space station, armed with a weapon capable of destroying entire planets. It had been the Galactic Force's trump card for centuries, kept hidden in case of an existential threat. Now they prepared to unleash it against humanity. But Velrak underestimated the humans once again. Earth's intelligence network, bolstered by defectors from the Galactic Forces, intercepted the plans for the Starbreaker. Kel received the intel while aboard the Resolute. "They're bringing out the Starbreaker," Rice said, her voice tinged with concern. "If that thing reaches Earth..." Kel cut her off, his expression hard as steel. "It won't. If they're deploying it, that means we're close to breaking them. This is their last desperate move, and we'll make sure it's their downfall." Kale immediately redirected the fleet, setting a course for the Starbreaker's location. Along the way, they liberated more planets and rallied more allies, growing stronger with each passing day. The galactic forces, once invincible, were now fractured and on the defensive. Alien leaders who had once mocked humanity now begged for Earth's protection. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was at the center of it all. As the human fleet closed in on the Starbreaker, Kale addressed his forces. His voice, transmitted across every ship and every soldier, carried the weight of Earth's resolve. "This is it," he said. "The Starbreaker is their last hope, and they're throwing everything they have to protect it. But we won't back down. Not now. Not ever. For Artemis, for Earth, and for every species they've oppressed, today we make history. Today we end the Empire's reign." The part ends with the human fleet emerging from hyperspace near the Starbreaker. The station looms like a dark sun, surrounded by the largest fleet the galactic forces have ever assembled. On the bridge of the Resolute, Kale narrows his eyes. "All ships," he commands, "engage." The final battle. The Starbreaker station hovered in the shadow of a dying star, its massive structure glowing with an eerie red light as it absorbed energy from the celestial giant. Its size dwarfed even the largest of humanity's warships, and its primary weapon, a planet-destroying superlaser, was rumored to be capable of reducing Earth to nothing more than cosmic dust. Surrounding it was the Galactic Force's remaining fleet, a final wall of defense composed of dreadnoughts, carriers, and fighters numbering in the tens of thousands. For the Galactic Forces, this was their last stand. For humanity, it was the battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy. On the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Kale stood before the central holomap, his gaze sharp and calculating. The Starbreaker's defenses were layered like the scales of a dragon, each one more dangerous than the last. Yet Kale's voice remained steady, his confidence unwavering. "This is where it ends," he said, addressing the officers and soldiers watching from every ship in the fleet. "They've built that monstrosity to scare us, to make us think they're invincible. But they're wrong. That station isn't a symbol of their power. It's a symbol of their fear. They know we've beaten them at every turn, and now they're clinging to their last weapon like cowards. Today we show them that humanity doesn't run. Today we win." The human fleet surged forward, a sea of ships moving in perfect unison. Every warship, every fighter, and every soldier knew what was at stake. They didn't just fight for Earth. They fought for the memory of Artemis, for the colonies that had been destroyed, and for the oppressed species who had pinned their hopes on humanity's success. The battle began with a thunderous explosion as the first wave of human ships engaged the Galactic Force's perimeter. Railguns fired kinetic slugs at near-light speed, tearing through the enemy's shields and armor. Missile barrages lit up the void, scattering debris and fire in all directions. The Galactic Forces fought back with equal ferocity. Plasma beams sliced through the blackness, and ion cannons unleashed bursts of energy that temporarily disabled human ships. Fighters swarmed like hornets, engaging in deadly dogfights that left the void littered with wreckage. On board the Resolute, Kale directed the battle like a master chess player, anticipating the enemy's moves and countering them with precision. "Target their dreadnoughts first," he ordered. "Their fleet relies on those for coordination. Break their backbone, and the rest will fall apart." Across the battlefield, humanity's advanced tactics began to turn the tide. Elite strike teams infiltrated the galactic dreadnoughts, sabotaging their systems from within. On the front lines, the Aegis-class battlecruisers pushed forward, their experimental plasma shields absorbing enemy fire while their railguns dismantled the opposition. But as humanity gained ground, the Starbreaker came to life. The station's superlaser began to charge, its core glowing brighter with each passing second. Inside the station, Supreme Chancellor Velrak watched the battle unfold from his command room, his crystalline form shimmering with tension. "Prepare to fire," Velrak barked. If we cannot win this battle, we will ensure Earth's destruction. Humanity's defiance ends today. The Starbreaker's weapon fired its first shot, a beam of pure energy that tore through space like a spear of light. It struck a human carrier, vaporizing the ship and everything aboard in an instant. The shockwave rippled across the battlefield, forcing even the most hardened soldiers to pause. On the Resolute, Captain Rice clenched her fists as the loss registered on the holomap. "They're targeting our capital ships," she said. "If that thing fires again, we'll lose half the fleet." Cal's jaw tightened, but his voice remained calm. "Not if we take it out first. Rice, assemble the strike team. We're going aboard." The Resolute surged forward, its shields deflecting enemy fire as it closed the distance to the Starbreaker. Dropships launched from its hangars, carrying Kale, Reyes, and a team of elite soldiers toward the station. The plan was simple: disable the Superlaser's core and destroy the station from within. As the team breached the Starbreaker's hull, they were met with heavy resistance. Galactic soldiers armed with advanced weaponry poured into the corridors, determined to stop the humans at all costs. But the human strike team was relentless, using their exosuits and superior tactics to push forward. Inside the command center, Velrak grew increasingly desperate. His officers reported that the fleet was collapsing, and human ships were closing in on the station. "Hold the line," he roared. "Activate the automated defenses. Do whatever it takes." Cal's team reached the core room, a massive chamber filled with glowing conduits and pulsating energy. At the center was the Superlaser's power core, a sphere of unstable plasma surrounded by protective shields. "Reyes, set the charges," Cal ordered. Reyes worked quickly, planting explosives around the core while the rest of the team held off waves of enemy reinforcements. The ground shook as the station's automated turrets came online, firing relentlessly. "We're running out of time," Reyes shouted as she set the final charge. Cal nodded. "Everyone, fall back. We detonate in 60 seconds." The team fought their way back to the dropships, narrowly escaping as the charges detonated. The explosion ripped through the Starbreaker's core, triggering a chain reaction that tore the station apart from the inside. Outside, the Galactic forces watched in horror as their ultimate weapon disintegrated in a blinding flash of light. The shockwave consumed the remaining enemy ships, leaving the human fleet victorious. As the light faded, cheers erupted across humanity's ships. The Starbreaker was no more, and the Galactic forces' last hope had been destroyed. On the bridge of the Resolute, Cal stood silently, watching the debris drift into the void. "It's over," Reyes said softly, standing beside him. Cal shook his head. "No, it's just the beginning. The galaxy will never forget what we've done here today. And neither will we. Victory and a new era." The wreckage of the Starbreaker station drifted silently through space, its shattered remains a testament to humanity's triumph. The once mighty Galactic forces had been dealt a blow so devastating that their empire's very foundation began to crumble. For the first time in thousands of years, the galaxy was free from the shadow of their tyranny. On the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Cal stared at the holographic map of the galaxy. The red markers that once represented the Galactic forces were rapidly disappearing, replaced by green, the color of liberated worlds. Cheers erupted across the fleet, but Cal remained still, his expression a mixture of relief and contemplation. "Admiral," Captain Rice said, stepping beside him, "we've done it. The Starbreaker is gone, their fleet is scattered, and their leadership is in disarray. This war, it's over." Cal let out a slow breath. "The battles are over, Rice, but the war isn't. Now comes the hardest part. Rebuilding." The fall of the Galactic Empire. News of the Starbreaker's destruction spread like wildfire across the galaxy. On countless worlds, oppressed species rose up against their overlords, inspired by humanity's victory. Governors, commanders, and even entire fleets defected or surrendered outright, unwilling to fight for a doomed cause. Supreme Chancellor Velrak, once the embodiment of the Empire's power, was forced into hiding. His crystalline body dulled, and his once commanding voice trembled with fear as he watched the galaxy slip from his grasp. On the capital world of Lathos Prime, the High Council dissolved into chaos. Some members called for negotiation, while others fled, realizing their reign was over. But for humanity, victory was bittersweet. The price had been steep. Thousands of human soldiers and civilians had perished in the war, and the memory of Artemis Colony's destruction weighed heavily on their hearts. Kale, more than anyone, felt the burden of their sacrifice. A galaxy rebuilt. With the galactic forces in ruins, humanity emerged as a symbol of hope. The liberated species, once fragmented and fearful, now turned to Earth for leadership. The United Human Defense Council worked tirelessly to create a new coalition, one built on fairness and mutual respect rather than domination. Kale became the face of this new era. His reputation as a fearless yet compassionate leader earned him the trust of countless worlds. Under his guidance, the Coalition of Free Worlds was formed, a galactic alliance that vowed to protect the rights of all species and ensure peace across the stars. On the newly liberated world of Zorith, representatives from dozens of species gathered to sign the Coalition Charter. Kale stood at the podium, addressing the crowd with quiet intensity. "Today, we stand united not as conquerors, but as allies," he said. "Humanity didn't fight this war to rule. We fought it because no one deserves to live under oppression. Together, we'll build a galaxy where strength doesn't come from weapons, but from unity, where freedom isn't a privilege, but a right." The crowd erupted in applause, and for the first time in living memory, the galaxy felt the stirrings of true hope. A memorial for the fallen. Back on Earth, a massive memorial was constructed in the heart of the capital city. It honored the lives lost during the war, from the civilians of Artemis Colony to the soldiers who had fought valiantly across the stars. A towering monument bore the names of the fallen, etched in steel that reflected the stars they had died protecting. Kale visited the memorial often, standing in silence as he read the names. Rise joined him one evening, the two of them standing side by side. "They'd be proud of what we've done," Rise said softly. Kale nodded, his voice quiet. "We've given them something worth dying for. Now we have to make sure it was worth living for too." The Galactic Force's final desperation. Even as the coalition grew stronger, remnants of the Galactic Forces lingered. Small pockets of resistance, led by die-hard loyalists, tried to fight back. Velrak, still in hiding, attempted to rally his forces, but their resources were depleted and their morale shattered. In a final act of desperation, Velrak sent a message to Earth, demanding a truce in exchange for his surrender. Kale received the transmission aboard the Resolute. "Admiral Kale," Velrak's voice crackled, a shadow of its former arrogance. "You've won, but if you truly want peace, you'll leave me in exile. Let the past die." Kale's response was swift. "The past won't die until justice is served. You'll answer for your crimes, not just against humanity, but against the galaxy." Velrak was captured shortly after, his empire reduced to ashes. His trial became a symbol of the new order, a warning to those who sought to abuse power. A new era. Years passed, and the galaxy began to heal. The coalition flourished, with humanity playing a central role in its governance. Advanced technology from Earth was shared freely, helping struggling worlds rebuild. Trade routes reopened, cultures blended, and for the first time in millennia, peace seemed possible. Kale retired from active duty, his mission complete. He spent his days mentoring the next generation of leaders, ensuring that the values humanity had fought for would endure. One quiet evening, Kale stood on a balcony overlooking Earth's night sky. The stars above seemed brighter, as if the galaxy itself was celebrating its freedom. Rise joined him, handing him a glass of wine. "You did it," she said with a smile. "We did it." Kale raised his glass. "To humanity." and to the galaxy we saved. The legacy of humanity. The story of humanity's rise became legend. Songs were sung, books were written, and statues were raised in their honor. Across the galaxy, children of all species grew up hearing tales of Earth's courage and compassion. Humanity, once underestimated and mocked, had become the protectors of the galaxy, a beacon of hope in the vast darkness of space. As the stars continued to shine, so did the legacy of humanity, a legacy of strength, unity, and an unbreakable will to fight for what was right.